So, hi, we are starting with the fourth unit of the paper, Nationalism in India. Fourth unit comprises of the social movements. Okay, in the second unit, we had discussed major social and religious movements in 19th century. In the fourth unit, we are discussing social movements specifically in five sections: workers, second is women, third is anti-caste movement, fourth is peasant, and the fifth is tribal uprisings. Okay, so social movements in these five sections are specifically studied. So I'll be taking two video sessions to complete this unit. In the first video session, I'll be covering the social movements in the sections of workers, women, and anti-caste movements. Okay, so let's start. The rise and evolution of the workers' movements in India. So we had discussed what a movement is, what a collective is, and everything in the second unit, and I'm not repeating it again. Okay. So yeah, the rise and evolution of workers' movements in India. The modern Indian working class began to take shape in the 19th century, largely due to the British introduction of a capitalist economy. This development was driven by industrialization through the establishment of modern factories, railways, dockyards, construction projects, especially in cotton and jute industries, which emerged as central to the British economic interest in India. The first cotton textile factory was set up in Bombay in 1855, and by 1914 India had 264 cotton mills with around 2.6 lakh workers. The jute industry was concentrated in Bengal, employing 2 lakh workers by 1912. Other sectors like railway, 6 lakh workers, mining 1.5 lakh, plantations 7 lakhs also saw a significant labor involvement. Let's see this in two phases. Okay, the first phase is from 1850 to 1918. This phase of the workers' movement was unorganized and sporadic, characterized by localized and short-lived strikes against poor working condition, low wage, arbitrary punishment. Influential individuals like S.S. Bengali, Sasipada Banerjee and Narayan Logande advocated for workers' rights, urging the British to legislate reforms. Although not formally organized into unions yet, workers' unrest laid the groundwork for future labor activism. Now comes the most important part, second phase. It's still 1947, till the year of independence. Okay. So post World War I, the movement grew stronger and more organized, influenced by global socialist trends and increasing political consciousness. A major milestone was the formation of the All India Trade Union Congress in 1920 with leaders like Lala Lajpat Rai, Joseph Baptista, N.M. Joshi and B.P. Watia. Rai served as the first president of AITUC. International developments like the creation of ILO in 1919 further validated the demand for workers' rights. In 1920s, the working class became a significant part of the national freedom movement, with both the Congress and Communists vying for the support. The Communist Party of India, formed in 1920 in Tashkent under M.N. Roy, used the Workers and Peasants Party (WPP) to mobilize the working class. Notably, it played a key role in organizing major strikes in Bombay and other cities. In 1920-21, along 396 strikes involving 6 lakh workers took place across sectors such as jute mills, railways, cotton factories and all. These strikes were more strategic and sustained, indicating a newfound political awareness among workers and their integration into national movement. However, ideological differences caused divisions within the workers' movement. The AITUC, originally formed as a unifying body, split due to conflicts between moderates and radicals. The National Trade Union Federation was formed by moderates like N.M. Joshi, V.V. Giri, while a more radical offshoot of AITUC, the Red Trade Union, was led by S.K. Deshpande and B.T. Ranadive. In the early 1930s, the movement saw a decline due to increased British repression, notably the Meerut conspiracy case, where many communist leaders were arrested. Internal splits also weakened the unified front of labor unions. The 1940s, however, marked a resurgence as India approached independence, and the Quit India movement of 1942 gained momentum. The working class again played a crucial role. After World War II, workers faced retrenchments and falling wages, which led to renewed unrest. By 1947, there were 1,811 strikes involving over 1.8 million workers, showcasing the workers' heightened involvement in both economic and political struggles. So from this we can get that the Indian workers' movement evolved from scattered and unorganized local protest to a powerful, politicized and well-structured national movement. The rise of trade unions, involvement of Congress and Communist parties, and support from international institutions like ILO gradually empowered the working class. Despite ideological splits and British crackdowns, the labour movement significantly contributed to India's struggle for independence, bringing working class concerns into national discourse and highlighting the intersection of economic justice and political freedom. Next is women's movement in colonial India. Just a second. The women's movement in India first took shape during the 19th century as a part of the social reform movement under British colonial rule. Women from women from marginalized sections, tribal groups and laboring castes largely remain invisible in the historical record due to their limited access to literacy and documentation. Thus, primarily on upper caste aligned movement, the focus was laid on. Sorry, I'm having cold. That's why the mic I am unmuting the mic frequently. Okay, so women in British period. Now let's see the social context. Initially, the British did not intervene much in women's issues, maintaining the traditional structure to ease administration. However, with the introduction of modern English education, a new class of Western educated Indian elites emerged. Exposure to European liberalism influenced these elites and they began to question regressive practices in Indian society. Missionaries also played a role by setting up institutions for widows and campaigning against practices like sati, child marriage, polygamy and all. So the women's movements during British period can be classified into two major strands: the social reform movement and nationalist movement. Social reform movements: liberal and revivalist reformers. Social reformers led the early women's movement, often characterized as either liberal reforms or revivalist. Liberal reforms, we know Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Ishwar Chandra Sagar. Revivalist means revivaling the old thing. Swami Dayananda Saraswati, Swami Vivekananda, and all. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy was a key figure who advocated for abolition of sati, female education, inheritance rights, and widow remarriage. His Brahmo Samaj challenged social evils and promoted women's upliftment. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar championed widow remarriage and worked against child marriage, establishing several schools for girls. Dayananda Saraswati, through Arya Samaj, pushed for compulsory education for girls and set up Arya Kanya Pathshalas. Reformers also focused on raising the age of consent. Campaigns led by Vidyasagar, Malabhari and others led to legislation increasing the legal age of marriage from 10 to 12 in 1891. Now female education. So both liberal and orthodox reformers supported female education. Vidyasagar established 48 girls' school. M.G. Ranade and his wife started a girls' high school in 1884. D.K. Karve emphasized widow education, founding Anand Balika Shramam, Mahila Vidyalaya and the SNDT Women's University. Pandita Ramabai founded Sharda Sadan for high caste widows. Muslim reformers like Amina Baharuddin Tyabji and Sharifa Hamid Ali established educational and welfare institutions for Muslim girls. Now, legal reforms and property rights. Laws such as the Special Marriage Act and the Married Women's Property Act expanded women's legal rights, especially related to property ownership and divorce. Okay, next is the nationalist movement and women. So by the late 19th century, the spread of women's education led to the emergence of a middle-class women's intelligentsia, which began participating in political and nationalist activities. Women joined the Swadeshi movement, donated jewelry, promoted khadi. Swarnakumari Devi and her daughter Sarala Devi supported nationalist movements. During the non-cooperation movement, M.K. Gandhi urged women to join public protest. The Dandi March and the civil disobedience movement saw widespread participation of women like Sarojini Naidu, Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, who broke Soul's laws, led marches and courted arrest. In 1931, Naidu represented Indian women at the second round table conference in London. During the Quit India movement, women played a leadership role as many male leaders were imprisoned. They organized camps, raised funds, ran underground networks. The Rani of Jhansi Regiment in Subhash Chandra Bose INA was formed exclusively for women. Now, women's organization. Coming to women's organization, Shakti Samadhi by Swarna Kumari Devi, Craft Center for Widows, it was initially, okay. Arya Mahila Samaj by Pandita Ramabai, Gujarat Istri Mandal, Mahila Seva Samaj, Bharat Istri Mahamandal by Sarala Devi Chaudharani, Women's Indian Association by Annie Besant, National Council for Women in India, operated under British patronage, All India Women's Conference, the most prominent and active national women's organization. Leaders included Sarojini Naidu, Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, Hansa Mehta, Aruna Asaf Ali. Then it focused on women's education, child marriage, pardha, legal rights, all these issues. Okay. Now, women in trade unions and peasant movements. Activists like Ushadai Dange, Meenakshi Sane and Maniben Kara worked within trade unions addressing women's rights and political awareness. In peasant struggles, women were crucial. In the Tebaga movement in Bengal, women fought against landlord exploitation. In Telangana rebellion against the Nizam and landlords, women like Arutla, Kamala Devi and Swarajam played leading roles. Now, armed resistance and tribal women. Pridilada Vadedar, Kalpana Dutt and Sunidhi Ghosh challenged colonial rule with militant actions. Tribal women too, like Rani Gaidinlu in Manipur, led no tax campaigns and resisted British authority, often at a great personal risk. From this, we can conclude that women's movement in colonial India evolved from a social reform initiative to a more politically active, mass-based movement. We saw reformist and revivalist movements to the national politics. Initially led by elite men and rooted in moderate reforms, it gradually expanded to include educated women, trade unionists, peasants, tribal women, and even revolutionaries. Women's active participation in the freedom struggle laid the foundation for the post-independence rights, including universal suffrage and constitutional equality. However, the journey toward actual gender equality remained unfinished at the time of independence, and the struggle continues in various forms today as well. Now coming to the anti-caste movements. Okay. Colonial influence on caste structure. British colonial rule disrupted traditional caste dynamics but simultaneously reinforced caste identities through new legal and institutional frameworks. Policies of equality before law, open access to education and jobs, and land as a marketable property was theoretically caste neutral but benefited mainly upper caste. Orientalist scholars and British ethnographers like Herbert Risley racialized caste, associating higher caste with Aryan ancestry, and ranked them during the 1901 census, giving caste hierarchy official legitimacy. Now coming to the association and movements. Caste identities became politicized, with groups forming associations to improve their status in the colonial classification system. The census became a tool for caste mobility as communities vied for recognition as higher castes. The process led to a paradox. Modern institutional systems legitimized caste-based identities in a secularized public space. Although reforms claimed caste neutrality, Dalits and lower caste faced social resistance in accessing education and jobs. For example, Mahar students in Daboli, Maharashtra had to protest for their right to sit inside classroom. Westernization involved adopting modern education and civic rights. Sankritization involved imitating upper caste rituals to gain status. Ironically, Sanskritization led lower castes to uphold regressive practices like child marriage, sati, reinforcing the caste system. Now coming to Satyasojak Samaj. Jyotiba Phule, a social reformer from Mali caste, founded the Satyasojak Samaj in 1873 to fight Brahmanical dominance and promote equality. Objectives included ending priestly exploitation, promoting education for all castes and genders, and eradicating untouchability. The movement promoted monotheism, rejected caste-based religious rituals, challenging the socio-religious hierarchy. Pandita Ramabai's feminist reform. So, a Brahmin by birth, strongly criticized the caste system and patriarchal Hindu norms. She married outside her caste under the Civil Marriage Act, challenging caste boundaries. Her activism highlighted gender and caste oppression, especially for Shudra women, and sought a human equal society. Now, self-respect movement in South India, led by E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar, Periyar. This movement challenged Brahmanism, Aryan dominance, and gender inequality. It emphasized Dravidian pride, Tamil language, rationalism, rejecting Sanskrit as a symbol of oppression. Inspired by earlier Adi Dravida intellectuals, the movement promoted temple entry, burning of caste texts, and opposition to Hindi imposition. Next, the Justice Party, formed in 1916, sought political and social upliftment of non-Brahmins and opposed Congress dominance. It won elections in Madras presidency due to Congress boycott and received reserved seats under 1919 reforms. In Maharashtra, a radical strand led by Satyasojak Samaj emphasized class struggle between Bahujan Samaj and upper castes. Now, Periyar's legacy and social vision. Periyar led a lifelong fight against caste injustice, Brahmanical dominance, and Hindi imposition. He championed women's rights, racialism, and Dravidian nationalism, demanding a separate Dravida Naidu. His influence shaped Tamil society profoundly and helped dismantle caste discrimination to a significant extent. Now coming to the Dalit protests. Dalits were prohibited, were not given access to public spaces, education, temples. Okay. Christian missionaries and the colonial government promoted education among Dalits, though implementation was inconsistent. Major temple entry movements like the Vaikam Satyagraha, Guruvayur Satyagraha were led by Dalits seeking religious equality. Dalits demanded social rights such as the right to cover their breast, leading to protests and riots. Now coming to the most important person when speaking of Dalits or caste, anything related to caste, is Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Born into the untouchable Mahar caste, Ambedkar faced discrimination but became a leading figure in the Dalit movement, emphasizing political power for social change. Ambedkar led a protest to claim the Dalits' right to use public water sources, Mahat Satyagraha, resulting in violence and repression from upper caste Hindus. Ambedkar continued advocating for Dalit rights, focusing on abolishing the caste system and ensuring equality for Dalits through direct action and legal reforms. Sorry. So we can summarize that Dalit protests in British India, particularly in the late 19th and 20th century, were rooted in the fight against caste-based discrimination and the demand for social and religious equality. The Christian missionaries' educated initiatives provided some Dalits with opportunities for empowerment, but these efforts were often hindered by caste resistance and colonial bureaucracy. Dalit movements sought to challenge caste hierarchies through symbolic acts like temple entry, participation in rituals. The Vaikam Satyagraha and Guruvayur Satyagraha are pivotal movements in these protests as Dalits sought equal access to religious practices. Ambedkar emphasized the need for Dalits to gain political power to achieve social justice. In 1927, Ambedkar led the Mahad Satyagraha, a protest demanding the right for Dalits to use public water sources. Despite facing violence from upper caste Hindus, Ambedkar's leadership persisted and his calls for equality and the abolition of the caste system gained widespread support, and Ambedkar's contribution to the Dalit movement laid the foundation for later social reforms in India. Okay, so that's all with the um, Dalit movements. Next is peasant movements and tribal movements. That I'll take to with another video. So the video won't get that lengthy. So yep. So we can continue in the next video session. Till then, happy learning.